Greetings all, and welcome to today's educational program, ISO 17020 Inspection, Documentation, and Training. This is Jari Aldana with ASQ Inspection Division. I am the webinar coordinator joining the program today from San Antonio, Texas. Today's program is being recorded. Any views expressed in this webinar are for general educational purposes only and do not represent any official views or positions of the sponsoring or presenters organizations. A video recording link of today's program will be available online later today via our website. You will receive an email 24 hours after the webinar documenting your RUs for attending this event. We are looking forward to your great comments and questions during the program. When you have a question or comment, please use the chat. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from David Feist. David Feist is an accreditation manager, ISO IEC 17020 Dimensional Testing, ANSI ASQ, ANAB. David is an accomplished quality professional experienced in multiple disciplines of international business, manufacturing, process mapping, organizational effectiveness, emergency management, planning for business continuity, Six Sigma quality improvement methodology, and total quality management and software development. He is the former owner of China Sourcing INC and Asia Pacific manufacturer of industrial products sold throughout U.S. industries with over 20 years of experience in the project management and large-scale project implementation. He's a consultant in laboratory systems, environmental, water quality, destructive, and dimensional, on manufacturing, international product teams, software validation, and project management. Mr. Feist established and ran 13 laboratories globally, guiding them through the ISO IEC 17025 registration process. He currently serves as the TAG as a technical lead for ANAB with oversight for both ISO 17025 and ISO 17020 accreditation processes. We wanted to just give a little short announcement that we will be holding our 2018 Inspection Division Conference in Memphis, Tennessee. The dates are October 18th to the 19th. We are going to have some great speakers, a lot of sponsors, and we welcome you and invite you to come join us. We do have pre-conference courses available for the CQ2 exam prep, CQA exam prep, and Yellow Belt exam prep course. There's going to be a lot more information. If you follow the link, we will provide it as well at the end of the presentation. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, David Feist.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good Tuesday, good afternoon, and good morning, depending on where you're at. Our conversation today is going to cover 17020, the inspection process, the documentation process, and training that should be in place. The objectives that I would like to cover are: what are some of the benefits of 17020, the 2012 version, for accreditation to that standard within the inspection community? I'd also like to explore a little bit around what the process is for implementation and accreditation to the standard. Throughout the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A. The administrators will bring it to my attention if I don't see it. And otherwise, at the end of the presentation, I'll make sure that we answer as many questions as possible. The next thing in objectives is I'd like to review different types of documentation that, working with different types of inspection bodies, we've found that there are particular problem areas, and they're consistent among inspection bodies. So we'll investigate a few of those. And we'll also talk about what is some of the typical training and the benefits for an inspection-driven organization. What what about accreditation is beneficial for these organizations? There's a lot of interesting details that we'll go over. Some of the things that I'd like to discuss what's the assessment process, and we won't get into great detail on that, but there are differences between what a lot of people know in the laboratory or 17025 world and the 17020 inspection body accreditation. We're also going to talk about what's happened with the growth of 17025 accreditation over the past 10 years or more, and what we see as the potential for 17020 accreditation leapfrogging that amount of growth in the next 10 years. We really think there's some interesting potential out there, and we talk as accreditation bodies about that quite regularly. We're also going to talk about what are some of the failures and some of the successes of 17020 accreditation. Not everyone that goes to become an accredited 17020 inspection provider is successful, and we'll talk about some of the reasons behind that. Okay, so let's start off by looking at 17025, which a lot of this group is probably familiar with. There's been enormous growth over the last dozen years or so. We've seen 17025 go from where it was originally issued as Guide 25 through the initial variations, through where it was 17025 in the 2005 version for any number of years, to where the latest version, which most organizations are just getting appended to, which was issued last November. What this has done with 2017 is there's been a tremendous expansion of the base for accredited testing globally. We've seen it impact manufacturing, as well as the impact that it's had upon shipment of product around the world. We've also seen 17025, particularly the 2005 version, be used as a base for many different types of accreditations or certifications. We've seen it with the Department of Defense Environmental Lab Accreditation Program. We've seen it with ILAC, the National Environmental Lab Accreditation Council, as a basis for the assessments that they're doing. What we have seen with 17025 is that it has been somewhat slow to change and adapt into new areas. And one of the reasons that we saw the change to 2017 was that the older version was resistive to new interpretations. Now, the nice thing about 2017 version of 17025 is it does follow the current ISO 9000 format, which has lent a little more credibility to it as we've gone along. Now, let's talk about 17020. With the move from the 2008 version of the standard to the 2012, we've seen tremendous growth in the areas that are using 17020 inspection bodies. There's actually a tremendous amount of overlap between 17025 and 17020. And a lot of organizations that could not figure out how to make 17025 work for them have been able to move into the 17020 realm, and as an accreditation body, ANAB has helped them to do that. The biggest thing that is different about 17020 is that it is based on professional judgment. It does not involve doing testing. It does not involve looking at material characteristics. It involves professional judgment and application of that judgment. We think that we're going to continue to see tremendous growth in 17020. Some of the areas that we're seeing in inspection body growth, those areas for inspection didn't even exist 3 and 4 years ago. So we think the next 10 years are dramatically going to change the face of accreditation as we know it. 17020 is particularly open to new interpretations, and I often have a lot of questions asked of me by people that are very familiar with 17025 accreditations, and they're amazed at how flexible the 17020 standard is. And it, like all the other 17,000 series documents, it does follow the current ISO 9000 format. So to give you a little bit of background here, this presentation is being done as part of the ASQ Inspection Division. ASQ is one of the owners of ANAB. It's 50% owned by ANSI, 50% owned by the ASQ. And 17020 for inspection bodies falls under two areas here. It falls under laboratory-related items, and it also falls under the forensic arms of ANAB. So there are two different areas that we have a tendency to talk about. There is an accreditation hierarchy, I can speak today, of ISO. For those of you that are a little familiar with this, the top level, ISO primarily is concerned with writing the documents that are used for guidance and accreditation. But the implementation of that is put together at the top level by what's known as the International Laboratory Accreditation Consortium, and they have global oversight for implementation and for accreditation bodies that accredit to 17025 and 17020 and other 17,000 series documents. The next level below that are groups like the Asia Pacific Laboratory Accreditation Consortium and the Inter-America Regional Recognition Body. The next level down are what are called accreditation bodies. That would be groups like ANAB, groups like A2LA, groups like PJLA, IAHA, DAX in Germany, CNAS in China, etc. And then the next level is what we call conformity assessment bodies, or the customers of the accreditation bodies. These are the laboratories and the inspection bodies that seek accreditation. I just want to give you a little bit of background there. Now, what are some of the benefits of accreditation, of 17020 accreditation? Because this is one of the things we wanted to touch on. We wanted to make sure that we wanted to let you know that there is independent verification of capability, just as in the other 17,000 series documents. This is a third-party review of the capabilities of an inspection body. Do they have the proper number of inspectors? Do they have the proper knowledge? Are their processes documented? How do they report the inspection results? One of the other benefits of accreditation is a clear transmission of what the areas of expertise are. The scope of accreditation that's laid out for an inspection body should clearly call out not only the areas that they're capable of inspecting and the products or processes or services that they're capable of inspecting, but it also should lay out the geographical regions. When you look at the scope of accreditation for 17020 inspection bodies, they're almost always going to lay out the geographical regions. And part of this is because, unlike what you may think of as a traditional reference material producer, proficiency testing provider, laboratory for testing, dimensional, etc., the inspection is primarily carried out in the field. So part of what an accreditation body is looking for is how do we make sure that in these regions of the world that the properly trained inspection personnel are there. And then one of the other benefits is the ability to inspect product or services in areas that are completely separate from usage. We see this in, for example, in the bonded warehouse district in Dubai. There are certain areas in certain countries that our customers will not send inspectors into, but you're able to perform an inspection of materials or items in a bonded warehouse district and seal those containers for shipment and delivery into other countries. Now, the process of 17020 accreditation, the first thing that you've got to do is decide, are you going to pursue accreditation, and what are the benefits that we listed on the last page? Do those make sense for you? The next thing that you need to look at is examine what are the intersection of some of the ISO requirements and some of the inspection requirements, because the ISO requirements can be very specific about how you set up your inspection body, how you do management reviews, how you do document control, but they may be very different than what your inspection requirements are. So you've got to look at how do those two link together, because that's going to determine, does it even make sense for you to pursue accreditation as listed in line 1. The next thing that I'm often talking with people about is something called a gap analysis, and what we want people to do when they're seriously considering accreditation to the 17020 inspection standard is to perform a gap analysis, and this is essentially taking each line-by-line requirement within the 17020 standard and looking at where your documentation fits in there. Then the next thing is to document the inspection process. This may sound like a silly thing, but what we find is that very few of the inspection bodies that come to us for accreditation have really thought this one through. That they are in the habit of saying, well, we've inspected these things for years. Of course we know how to perform this. And then the last piece in this process is training your inspection team, training them on, here are the documents we use, here are the procedures we follow, here's how we report information. Okay. Now, one of the things that we run into often are what we call documentation issues. The first of these is training records. There's a recognition within ISO that before an organization pursues ISO accreditation, that oftentimes training records are non-existent, or that there's been very inconsistent documentation of how people have been trained to perform inspection. That's why in most cases, once you've got the documentation in place of how you're going to perform training, what the requirements are for somebody to be qualified as an inspector, there's usually a one-time in the lifetime of that organization, when you've got all those documents together, when somebody with technical capability within that organization can grandfather in personnel who are qualified as inspectors. But from that date forward, it's a one-time in the lifetime of the organization thing. From that time forward, everyone who joins the organization has to go through that documented process. The other thing is traceability of equipment, and this is interesting because traceability of equipment, in particular, with 17020 inspection bodies, we find that a lot of inspection bodies are going on site and are utilizing very specific equipment owned by their clients. But there's a requirement within the standard that the traceability and the calibration of any equipment used for inspection does not fall with the client. The traceability requirements and the documentation thereof fall with the inspection body, because you're that inspection body is the group that is performing the inspection and making judgment, applying professional judgment based upon those measurements, those readings, those technical data that are provided. Okay. There also are many times customer-specific documents or customer-specific requirements. Those may be, while an inspection may be performed to international or regional standards, ASTM standards, ANSI standards, etc., EN standards, there may also be very specific customer requirements that we have to inspect to. The other thing is there may be what's known as an AHJ, an authority having jurisdiction. We run into this in many regions. One of these that's very common in the inspection field is building code requirements in New York City amongst the 5 boroughs. The authority having jurisdiction is the New York Building Code agency, and it has very specific requirements that not only do we have to assess to, but that the inspection bodies have to document their ability to inspect to. And then the final one, something that's very different about inspection bodies. Inspection bodies, when you think of a laboratory, you think of an organization where you've got a fixed facility and you've got access to everything. Most inspection bodies, even if there are 200, 300 individuals in the field performing inspection, the primary office is very often no more than 5 or half dozen people. This means that making sure that we have the proper documents and the proper document control with the field inspectors is an ongoing live thing. More than any other group, we find that inspection bodies have gone to controlling their documents in the cloud and making sure that the inspectors have live access to those items on an ongoing basis. Okay. Some of the typical training that we see, application of bonded seals. Some of the inspections that are performed are for containerized shipping, where it is either a raw material, finished goods, and those are documented as they're being loaded. That's called a pre-shipment inspection. Once that pre-shipment inspection is completed, an inspection report is keyed to a bonded seal that is applied to that container, and that inspection report is only valid if that bonded inspection seal is not broken upon delivery. Okay. Also, some of the training that we see from 17-20 inspection bodies is interpretation of accredited test reports. What does that mean? One of the key pieces for inspection bodies is they're not actually doing the measurement of items, but they may be getting material results, they may be getting radiographic analyses, they may be getting CAD drawings that have to be interpreted, they may be looking at were the sequence of inspections performed properly. And the next is looking at what the approval cycle is for inspection results, dependent upon the type of inspection that's being performed. There's a time cycle for getting those accredited inspection results to the client. Okay, let's go back a little bit through the history of inspection. These type of technical inspections have been carried out for more than the past century. One of the main goals of inspection was to gain experience in order to reduce accidents. Inspection really started back in the late 1800s, and it was driven by what was the cause of the number one cause of deaths in industrial accidents at that time were what are known as pressure vessels or boilers, because there was no requirement for how those were maintained, how the pressure vessels were maintained, regular inspections for operation. And that kicked off the whole process of what we know as industrial inspection. One of the things that I want you to know is that the human factor involved in inspection and the materials and the application of materials are an important point. There are ISO guides for inspection. There was a development of EN 45004, the general criteria for operation of various types of bodies performing inspection. That drives some of the things that we do. In addition, there's ISO Guide 39, general requirements for acceptance of inspection bodies, and ISO Guide 57, which talks about how we present inspection results. Now, what is an inspection body? I'm not going to read this off to you. It's a impartial body having the competence and integrity to perform specific functions, whether it be assessing, recommending for acceptance, subsequent audit, to specified criteria. Now, what is the difference between inspection and testing? This is a key point. In the 17,000 series, testing is a determination of characteristics of an object according to a procedure. A procedure is a specified way to carry out that activity or that process or that testing. Testing normally applies to materials, products, processes, those types of things. Inspection applies to the products, processes, and services, whether those products are in compliance, whether they're marked correctly, whether that process is carried out in proper sequence, or whether the service is administered properly. And there is a lot of overlap between testing and calibration activities and inspection activities. Biggest difference, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, most types of inspections involve professional judgment to determine acceptability against general requirements. In essence, an inspection body needs the necessary competence to perform a task. In general, there are three types of inspection. Inspection of new products or inspection of a crime scene if it's under forensics. This is very detailed, and it may focus on some of the weak points in design or production. The next is periodic inspection, and this ties right back to what we were talking about with boiler or pressure vessel inspection, where it's primarily focused on points of wear, points of corrosion, are items functioning properly, and those types of things. The last type is what we call pre-shipment inspection, and this can be inspection of goods before they're shipped, after they're shipped. It may be intended to determine conformance with letters of credit. It may be things of that sort. For example, some of the types of inspection we see are for pre-shipment. We see pre-shipment inspection of grains. We also see various food products. We also see pre-shipment inspections of oils, whether it be sunflower, canola oils, etc. And another type is recycled materials. One of the largest areas for pre-shipment inspections that we see here in the U.S. are shredded metals, call it cars, vehicles, appliances, and other things that are shredded, and they're inspected for cleanliness, they're inspected for total weight, they're inspected for background radioactivity prior to shipment to other parts of the U.S. or other parts of the world for smelting to be recast into ingots. Okay, so let's talk about the definition of inspection. It's examination of product design, the product, the service, the process, the installation, and the determination of their conformity with those specific requirements using professional judgment. This can include processes with personnel, facilities, the technology, the methodology associated with it, and the results of an inspection may be used to support certification of that product or process. Okay, let's talk about product design. It may be the approval of the type of product design. It may involve checking the CAD drawings or old school blueprints. If we're looking at a pressure vessel, we see this a lot on pressure vessels that are going for methane gas recapture on oil wells when oil wells are drilled. What are the material characteristics? What is the thickness of the steel for that pressure vessel? What is the quality of the steel that's being used? Were proper radiographs taken of welds throughout the process? Because once a pressure vessel is sealed, you can't go in and see that process. You can't go back and determine, oh, was this properly radiographed during the assembly and operation? Was it were the proper relief valves in place? Were they checked? Did we check the static pressure using a water test? Those are all part of inspections that we see on a regular basis. It also may be examination of a product. It may be the initial inspection. Sometimes it's inspection and testing against requirements, and that can be part of what's defined in a related standard. It can be something as simple as looking at, is the product identified properly for shipment? Does it have the correct quantity that's laid down in a manifest? Periodic inspection, this can be, for example, what are the relevant items defined on a product? It can be a car inspection. It could be akin to if you see a pre-flight checklist. It can also be looking at installations in a plant or building. It's not so much often randomized inspection. Normally, it's a much more thorough inspection than that. It can be the examination of a service. How is a maintenance process performed? What's the procedure used? Was it properly boroscoped as it was being done? And how those inspection results are documented may be used to support the certification of that product. It can be the process, including how welding is done, how soldering is done, how bolts are torqued, those types of things. It's not looking at the actual torque values, it's looking at what are the results of those. It may be looking at the examination of a plant, how something's installed, how it was assembled. It may be final inspection after construction. It can be the installation of a fire safety door, a fire damper. It can be how a lift or elevator was put in place. It can be medical devices. The periodic inspections we're talking about, the boilers, the lifts, the cranes, etc. And as part of inspection, we are trying to determine the conformity with specific requirements, the standards, the guidelines, the legal requirements from the authority having jurisdiction, contractual requirements in place. And it's a determination of this conformity not only based on the requirements, but also based on professional judgment. And each of the items listed at the bottom here, general rules, expert knowledge, experience, checklists, all of those play into what an inspection body performs. Okay. Now there's a very clear borderline between inspection, certification, and testing. Testing is very well defined, and the result of testing is normally a concrete value with an uncertainty applied. Certification is the comparison of that result of testing with specified requirements. Now, inspection is normally based on professional judgment. Do the testing results and do the certification and the way that they're put together in a sequence, do they meet the overall requirements? Okay, when we look at that, we'll go over this very quickly. These are some of the requirements from ISO 17011. Accreditation is third-party attestation. That's what we as an accreditation body do, conveying a formal demonstration of competency to carry out specific assessment tasks, and that's what an accreditation body is, us, like ANAB. An expert is somebody that is assigned by us as an accreditation body who has the knowledge or expertise with respect to that specific scope of accreditation to be assessed. We'll cover this very quickly. First, second, and third party audits, because these do apply in inspection bodies as well as in testing laboratories. First party audits are audits that you conduct yourself. Second party audits are conducted by somebody that you have a business relationship, or you are conducting an audit on that individual or organization that you have a business relationship with. And a third-party audit is what an accreditation body does. It is done by an independent body, and it is to demonstrate conformity to recognized international standards. Okay. Let's skip over accreditation versus conformity. I don't think that's relevant. This is a graphical representation of what we talked about earlier with ILAC doing the implementation of ISO standards, APLAC, IAAC at the next level, and then the individual accreditation bodies doing assessments of inspection bodies. Okay, now some of the technical areas that are represented by inspection bodies: welding, assembly, pressure vessel inspections for oil and gas field installations, boiler and pressure vessels, building code, compliance inspections, escalator, elevator permitting, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. We've seen this come out of nowhere in the past 3 years. The accreditation of inspection bodies that perform this inspection as well as relabeling. Magnetic particle testing, ultrasonic testing, visual inspections, shipping and port transit qualifications. This can be everything from inspection of loading of grain to one of the more common inspections we see are vessel cleanliness, hold, corrosion inspection. We see those types of things. We can also see coating thickness and deposition that coating. Per ILAC, these are the areas that we see inspection. Can it be agricultural products? Yes. Can it be bulk products? Yes. Cargoes in containers and packages? Yes. Can it be inspection of cast products or chemicals? Yes. Can it involve foods? Can it involve fire safety? Can it involve printed cardstock? Yes. It can be protective coatings. One of the things that we see on oil and gas pipeline is there's oil and gas pipelines have to have a flame spray coating applied at about 1200 degrees F for corrosion protection. The deposition of that and the measurement and inspection of that application is critical. And the inspection essentially reviews the records and the operation of that being applied with the right chemical composition, with the materials being tested, with the base pipe being heated to the proper temperature, being maintained for a certain period of time, and then being cooled. We also see it for wood composite materials. We see it in textiles, and we see it in application of building codes. There's quite a few areas out there that this applies to. The coverage of ISO 17020, it can cover all operations and locations for performing inspections. It does not matter whether it's first, second, or third party inspections. 17020 is not part of what is involved in lab certification at all. It does not perform testing. It does not do dimensional inspection. It does not do those types of things. It is applying professional judgment based upon the testing results, the material inspection results, and looking at the process. It can include the quality process, administrative, technical operations management, but it also does not cover regulatory or safety requirements. Now, when a group has been accredited to 17020, there's what we call the scope of accreditation, and that refers directly to the areas of inspection that an inspection body has been evaluated for by an accreditation body. And it means that we've looked at the documentation, we've looked at the training procedures, we've witnessed the inspections in the field, and we've seen how this application is in place. Now, inspection bodies are fully capable of performing inspection outside of their scope of accreditation, and they will still be within the scope of the 17020 standard. It just is not allowed to be considered an accredited inspection because we've not reviewed the areas within. Now, in general, for any of you that have looked at the 17020-2012 standard, it breaks out the same as the rest of the 17,000 series standards in the 5 sections, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And 8 directly ties back to management system requirements related to ISO 9000, and that relates to option A or option B. One of the things that we're always looking at with inspection bodies is impartiality and independence, and this is one of the things that we hear back from ILAC at all times. There are 3 types of inspection bodies. 90+% of the inspection bodies that you see are going to be what are called Type A. These are third-party inspection bodies. They're independent of the groups that they are inspecting. They are not involved in the design, manufacture, supply, installation, use, or maintenance of the inspected items. That's a key item. They are fully independent from the organizations that they are performing inspection for. The second type are what are called Type B, and those are in-house inspection bodies, but they form a separate and completely independent part of that organization. And establishing the impartiality and independence of those groups is sometimes very difficult. And the third type, we actually see very few of, Type C. They are part of an organization that does design, manufacture, maintain items, but they are a separate part within that organization. We see very few of those. Okay. Clause 8 requirements. If you're familiar with ISO 9000, you're familiar with these: management system documentation, control documents, control records, etc. Okay. One of the overriding documents that we look at from ILAC is what's called ILAC P15, and this talks about the application of ISO 17020 for the accreditation of inspection bodies. It provides information for use both by us as an accreditation body and for the inspection bodies themselves on how they would apply ISO 17020. It's published by ILAC, and it is mandatory under the accredited inspection program. Okay. Specifically under 4.1 on impartiality, if a risk to impartiality is identified, the inspection body shall be able to demonstrate how it eliminates or minimizes such risk. And the inspection body shall have top management commitment to impartiality. Now, in ILAC P15, the inspection body should have a documented statement emphasizing its commitment to impartiality. And the key on this is that actions emanating from top management should not contradict this statement. Okay? And one way for top management to emphasize its commitment to impartiality is to make relevant statements and policies publicly available. So that's one of the things as an accreditation body we're often looking for. Okay. Now, tactics for a successful ISO 17020 program. The first thing is review a copy of the 17020 standard. And I'm not concerned if you purchase a copy, you review somebody else's copy. You can buy one later if you decide that it's the path you want to go down. Ask an accreditation body. Ask the accreditation body that you're familiar with, or one that you're not familiar with, for a list of documents that they assess to. Part of our role as an accreditation body is to promulgate knowledge of the standards, and that is part of this. Next, do a gap analysis to the 17020 standard. And when you do that gap analysis, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you're looking at 3 levels of documentation. First, I want to make sure that that when you perform the gap analysis, that you're looking at the top level documentation, whether you call that your quality manual, whether you call that a piece of your overall quality documentation. I want you to state in your gap analysis where each requirement is met in your overriding quality manual or quality document. Second, I want you to demonstrate where it is specifically called out in your procedure. Okay, so you say that you're going to do document control in your quality manual. Great. Okay, next I want you to show me in your procedures how you perform that document control. And then the third piece of information I want to see for each shall in the standard as part of your gap analysis is I want you to show me objective evidence. Okay, here's the document that we looked at. Here's the revision it has. Here's the date. So I want you to go through and do that for everything in the ISO 17020 standard. Once you do that, you need to set a time frame for resolving each of the identified gaps. And in that gap analysis, I want you to be brutal. I want you to be very specific. If you're not, the time frame that you set for resolving each of the identified gaps, that's great, but you may not see all of them. Okay? Next, I want you to document the skill sets, the training, the inspection types that are necessary. Once you've done that, then you go through and you perform an internal audit. And I want that to include the witnessing of inspectors. How are they retrieving documents? How are they filing reports? How do they review test certificates? What's the process that they go through? I just saw a question pop up, specific that, will this presentation be shared with the attendees? This presentation, my understanding is that it is going to be live on the Inspection Division website. We've given permission for this to be copied up there. So I think that should help to answer that. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to ask that Jer open this up. And if there are any questions, we will take them now.
Yes, thanks a lot, David. So anyone have a question, feel free to post it in the chat. I will be reading them out. David was kind enough to provide his email address as well. So if anyone needs to have a question, go ahead and feel free to email David at a later time. But we'll give a minute or two, see if anybody might think of any good questions, anything that you might want to ask.
And I do want to thank everyone for making sure that they attended. This is a little different view into 17020. I am happy to respond to any emails that you send to me.
We just have a question here. Will the slide deck be sent out to us? As far as that goes, we will have the posting of the presentation. And David, I'm not sure if you want to send this to someone that might be interested, if they could reach out to you. If not, they could always get the recording.
I'm fine with sending out a PDF version of the presentation. If somebody wants that, I would direct them to Jer. Why don't we have those requests sent through you, and I will send you a PDF version of this.
Okay, great. So thanks for that. My email address is Jair Aldana, Jair Aldana @yahoo.com. What I would do is I would see if somehow I could get the list of the panelists who attended, and I would forward my email in case anyone is interested in getting David's PDF presentation, and we thank you for that, David. Okay. We have another question here. How many organizations have 17020 accreditation?
There's several hundred around the globe. ANAB has accredited. I should know that number off the top of my head, but I don't, because it involves both forensics and more traditional inspection. Let's see. Next one. Can a company's development department become an inspection body for the products made by their production department as a Type C inspection body? Yes, they can. The biggest thing is going to be maintaining that impartiality and independence. You have to be able to show that the results of the inspection are not in any way influenced by the production department, or by if for example you're doing inspection and another part of the organization does repair or retrofitting of the types of devices or installations that are being done. And that continues to be a significant challenge for a lot of organizations that are involved with 17020 inspection. Okay. I saw a note pop up here briefly. Can an individual be accredited to 17020? It really has to be. The first thing is it has to be an organization. Could it be an organization that is represented by one individual? Yes. We have a number of inspection bodies that are 2 or 3 individuals. So the short answer is, can it be an individual? No, it has to be an organization, but that organization can be about as small as you want.
Anyone have any questions, additional questions? We still have a little bit of time, about maybe for 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay, well, if not, I want to say thank you to everyone. Okay. And okay. I see a note that just popped up about ASQ credit for recertification.
Yes.
Jared, would you address that?
Yes, we will be sending an email within 24 hours of this presentation, and you will get your recertification credits.
That sounds pretty good to me.
All right. Well, I would like to thank David Feist for sharing this presentation with us, and each and every one of you for participating. We wish you well. Hope all you will stay in touch. And please do send any questions to David, or feel free to email me at the email I provided earlier. And with that, we're closing the session, and thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.